Well, hello, and welcome back to another episode of Dear Goddess. I am Kel Karuna, spiritual mentor, transformation coach, somatic healer, author, speaker, goddess, and you're a goddess too. I used to think that this idea of being a goddess was all about like a specific aesthetic and it's flowy and it's ethereal. And yes, it is those things, but more than anything, this notion of being a goddess is really about just embracing and embodying all of yourself. It's about actually taking yourself out of that box and allowing yourself to express your true, authentic self. And we do that by really embracing and embodying all of the parts of ourselves. So if that sounds good to you, then you are in the right place. Okay, so before we dive into this episode, let's just take a moment to set the vibe as I am recording this. So it is a Sunday morning here in Bali, and I literally just got back from a surf lesson. Like, started my day with a surf lesson at 6 a.m. super early, which it's kind of my favorite way to start the day, but it was my first time surfing in about 2 weeks and my first time with a new teacher. This probably would have been a good episode to share some of the life lessons I've learned from surfing, but that's not the conversation that we're having today. But yeah, I have my wet, salty surfer hair. If you're watching the video, you can see that. And it's kind of my favorite look, if I'm fully honest. And it's interesting because when I first started this podcast back in the day as Dear Dumb Bitch, I would have never even fathomed that I would be surfing and taking surf lessons. And if you had told me that I would be on video without makeup and with like wet surfer hair, I would like, like what? No, like that's not what we do. We look perfect. And yeah, it's really, really liberating to let go of the conditions and the constructs by which you think you need to show up to live your life. And we're going to be diving more into that concept today. But I have the Oracle card that I pulled for today's episode, and it is the Holy Grail, which feel like I may have pulled this one for a previous episode, or maybe it was the Sunday Soul Care email that I send out every single Sunday. If you're not getting that, I'll put the link in the show notes so you can receive it. It's just truly like a love letter from my heart and soul to yours. And I share all kinds of resources and practices and just perspective and inspiration for you and your soul on Sunday. So this card is the Holy Grail. Stop the endless searching. And I already know this is so on brand for the conversation that we are going to be having today. So, in the last episode, I mentioned I was going to be sitting with some medicine, specifically Kambo and Bufo, this past weekend. And my goodness. Wow. Okay. This past week has been the most profound and difficult and also beautiful and subsequently healing and transformative week of maybe my entire life. And I really feel called to share my experience with you working with the medicines of Kambo and Bufo. And I'll share a little bit more about what these medicines are as we go into this episode. But I feel like I need to give a little bit of a disclaimer here. My intention with this episode is to share my experience, to share my perspective, to share the lessons that I have learned. I mean, that's really the whole premise for the entire podcast. And while I will be sharing information about these medicines, this is not intended to be the informational resource to really learn and understand about what these medicines are and how they work and all of that. Like, this is not the place for that. You're going to get a lot out of this episode, but this is not intended to be like the Wikipedia. I am not teaching you about these medicines. And ultimately, I'm still learning about them myself. I'm not really in a place to be teaching about them. I'm just here to share my experience and what I have learned and am still learning from them. So I invite you and encourage you to do your own research, especially if you feel called to work with these sacred medicines from the earth. And Often our ego wants us to do certain things, or like we heard about ayahuasca and we want to go and do it. But these medicines will call you. And it's definitely something that you want to make sure that you are ready for, ready to receive, in a place to receive, and also that you are working with facilitators that you feel very safe with, that are very knowledgeable and trained in serving the medicine, especially if it's medicines that are coming from indigenous tribes, making sure that they actually have the permission to be serving these medicines. Like it's really, really important. So if you're curious about these medicines from the earth, I really, really invite you to do your own research. And you can message me if you have questions. I'm happy to be a support and a resource for you. But at the same time, I'm not coming on here as the expert on all things plant medicine. I am sharing my own personal experiences. And my intention is, even if you never feel called to work with plant medicines or other medicines from the earth, to really just share the lessons that I'm learning from this. So even if you're like, yeah, I don't really feel called to ever sit with plants or any kind of medicines like this, first of all, never say never, right? Like, let's just not limit ourselves and limit what's possible. But this is still going to be a powerful episode. So that was the bit of the disclaimer here. I'm not coming on here as an expert. I'm not a shaman. I'm not a facilitator. I probably will be at some point, but right now I'm just really deepening my own study. And I first felt called to work with plant medicine when I moved to Bali. And prior to that, I had experienced mushrooms before, but it was back in my party chapter, which was mostly when I was in college. And oh, that was a huge chapter. I probably could do another whole episode just talking about that season of my life. And I really just partied and used all kinds of drugs. Like there's probably few substances that I have not tried. I haven't injected anything. I haven't done like heroin or crack. But besides that, I pretty much have used most substances. And back then, it was very much coming from an unconscious place. It was not coming from a place to connect with myself and for healing. In fact, it was the exact opposite. It was coming from a place of disconnecting and wanting to like be cool and fit in and just party, and so much love to that version of myself. But it's actually a miracle that I'm still alive in many ways, because I never questioned what I took. It was just like, here, I'll take it more, right? It was really unsafe. And I look back and I'm like, oh my goodness, that is concerning. Like, babe, are you okay? I was not okay. I was not okay at all. But that was back in college, and then stopped using hard drugs, we'll call them, and then was pretty much just smoking weed and pretty much spent my entire marriage high. It was very much a coping mechanism. Stopped smoking when I left the marriage. That helped me just kind of create clarity. Moved across the country to do the whole restart your life thing, heal from trauma, and again, another conversation. But I started smoking weed again in Washington when I moved out there. Also, not from a conscious place. It was very much to numb, to disconnect. It was a coping mechanism for me. And that was pretty much my experience with substances and drug use. And this isn't a conversation about drugs. I'm just providing a little bit of context here so you can see how I ended up in this place of consciously choosing to work with sacred medicine of the earth. And the reason I'm saying sacred medicine from the earth and not just plant medicine is because the two medicines that I'm specifically going to be sharing about today are amphibians. They're not plants. They're frogs and toads. So, sacred medicine of the earth. When I started to go deeper with my own healing journey, I was still smoking weed and taking edibles, but there were times when I was starting to use it more consciously, and I was using it to connect with myself. Like I would eat an edible and paint or do something creative or go to a music show and just connect deeper with myself and my body. Or I would work out or go to a yoga class. And there were moments where I was really starting to use it more intentionally to connect with myself, but it still wasn't coming from a very conscious place. And along the way, I stopped smoking weed and pretty much using all substances, even caffeine, and just completely just clearing out my system. And then I moved to Bali and obviously was not smoking weed or using drugs here. It's highly illegal in Bali. And it was no longer in alignment for me, but I felt called to start working with psilocybin. And psilocybin being mushrooms. So that was in 2023. I had two really, really beautiful, it's technically three ceremonies with psilocybin, and I was also microdosing that year. And I'm gonna save that for another episode because I have so much to share about that. But today's episode is specifically about the most recent ceremonies that I experienced, which were, oh my goodness, so profound, so life changing. But I'm just cutting you some context here with my own journey as far as working with these medicines. So 2023 was really like the year of like psilocybin. It was something that called me. I was never like, oh, I'm just gonna like do this. It just kept coming up into my field, and I'm like, oh, okay, let me explore this. So then in 2024. I did a couple of water fasts. I did a 7-day water fast and a 14-day water fast, which is not technically a plant medicine or an amphibian medicine, but it's medicine from the earth. It's working with water. And it was a very, very spiritual and healing journey for me as well. Again, that could be another episode. But I felt called to ayahuasca, and I sat with ayahuasca 3 times last year. And there were a couple other like hot bay and things like that. This year, I had really, really been feeling called to the amphibians, to Kambo and Bufo. I don't even know like how I initially like discovered these, but it just kept coming in so strongly. I just kept feeling so pulled to work with these medicines. So I found a facilitator and decided to sit in ceremony with Kambo and Bufo for the first time in the beginning of May. So going into it, I definitely was like a little nervous because I did not know what to expect. One of my dear, dear sisters, who was still living in Bali at the time, was working with this facilitator in like a training, like mentorship program. So I felt a bit more comfortable knowing that because like I really trusted her, but I had never worked with this facilitator before. So there was definitely a degree of trust involved. But I had a conversation with him before and I knew him just from the community here and it felt aligned. It just felt really good. So scheduled our ceremonies. So combo is not a psychedelic. It is a really, really powerful medicine, but it is a purgative medicine. So you're purging physically, energetically, emotionally, and it also is just so healing for the body. I don't even know how many it has. All of these peptides, and it's extremely anti-inflammatory for the body. Like it does so much to heal the body on a physical level. And it is from the secretions of a frog. So the way it works is the secretions are harvested and ideally in a very ethical way to really honor the frogs and the spirit of the frogs. And then it's able to be served in ceremony. So this is going back to the beginning of May, so I'm going to share my first experience and then work my way up to the most recent experience and see. I'll be sharing the many lessons I learned along the way. So, first ceremony, I arrive, and the first thing I see is the bucket set up on the floor, and I'm like, yep, this is what's happening. That's essentially what happens with combo. Like you're going to puke. That's the intention of it. So like didn't really know what to expect, but the facilitator like explained everything. And the way combo is served is it has to enter your body through some kind of open wound. So what they do is they actually make some burn marks using it. It looks like an incense stick, but it's not really incense, but they make little circles that are called gates and it's essentially burning your skin. It's not like a super deep burn. It's just creating the access points for the medicine. Technically it's a poison. It's the toxin from the frog, but it acts in a medicinal way to enter the bloodstream. And you can choose where you want these gates, but ultimately the location that you choose affects the experience and also how quickly it works, depending on the proximity to your heart. So, if you were to get your gates on your legs, for example, it would take longer for the experience to begin. So, I chose my arm for the first one, specifically my right arm, because one of my intentions was to really just clear out any residual energy, anything I've been holding on to as it relates to toxic masculinity. And the right side of your body is representative of your masculine. And he's asking me, like, how many gates do I want? And you can get anywhere from 3 to 6 or maybe even 9. And for someone who it's their first time, like probably 3 or 4. And my intuition told me 4, but I was nervous. I was really nervous. And I was like, 3. Okay, 3. So he makes the burn marks, and it's not super painful, but it also doesn't feel good, but it's quick. And then he applies the medicine, and you have to drink a lot of water. And as soon as the medicine is applied, you feel it pretty quickly. Like your heart starts to race. It feels like your face is swelling up a little bit. You feel yourself turning red, and it's very uncomfortable. It literally feels like you are being poisoned. And then you, of course, feel the sense of just you have to puke and throw up. Except I felt like I couldn't. I was like, I need to puke, but it wasn't coming. It just was not happening. So he's having me drink more water. And then he's like, do you want like another gate? And I'm like, yeah, let's do that. So then I have 4 now. And still I'm not throwing up. And I think maybe I threw up like a little bit, but it was just mostly the water. And ultimately, when you purge, it's like deep toxins that have been in your body, because what happens is the medicine from Kambo comes in, and I literally see it as like little frogs like hopping around my body and just clearing out what needs to be released physically and also energetically, because a lot of the purge and what's being released is happening at an energetic level. So then he makes the other dots, and I have 4 on. And still, I'm just like, feeling so unwell. And I was really being present with the discomfort and allowing myself to just be in the experience of it. And ultimately, he ended up applying 2 more doses of the medicine. So it ended up being like 6 total, but it was kind of spread out over time. And then finally, I was able to really purge. So there was a pretty big purge when it was all said and done, but it was kind of spread out over a longer period of time. It was not the most fun experience by any means, but afterwards I felt so good. I just felt so light, so clear. My body just felt so in balance and harmony. I could feel the inflammation going down, and it was really, really beautiful. Even though the experience itself wasn't that fun, I actually just loved the medicine so much. So that was Kambo. And then the next day was my Bufo ceremony. So Bufo is from a toad, and it's also the secretions from the toad, but it's specifically the 5-MeO DMT it's specifically the 5-MeO DMT molecule. And this can also be created synthetically. I've only worked with it organically through Bufo, but I've heard that the experience with the synthetic formulation of it is also really powerful, but almost like a bit of a clearer experience, because when you're working with Bufo, you have the energy and the spirit of the toad working as well. But I have not experienced that yet. So Bufo, I was probably more nervous for than Combo. Combo, I knew what to expect. I knew it's not psychedelic. I'm not really going to other dimensions. I'm just going to feel really uncomfortable, and I'm going to puke a lot. So I kind of knew what to expect. Now, I was definitely still nervous for it, especially my first time, but Bufo, I had a bit more fear about, if I'm fully honest, because I didn't know what to expect. And I'll tell you right now, you can't know what to expect. First of all, it's going to be different every single time. And also the experience in and of itself. Like, I'm going to do my best to articulate it with words, but it's so beyond words. It's so beyond the mind. But ultimately, 5-MeO DMT, it's also known as the God molecule, basically just blast you off into the highest state of consciousness. You're basically becoming pure source consciousness, and your ego completely dissolves and disintegrates. Sometimes, not all of the time. But what can happen when you are working with Famio DMT, Bufo, is you have this experience of non duality where there's truly no separation between you and God. You become God, essentially. You literally meet God. If you have that experience, you don't always have that experience. So we'll talk more about that because this is where it begins to get interesting. Arrive the next day for my Bufo ceremony, and my friend was also there, so that just felt really good and really supportive to just have her and to have her presence there. And you smoke Bufo. So it's this big, like, glass pipe looking thing. And there's this like big ass like torch to like light it. And I was definitely feeling nervous at this point, which it was interesting to me because in the past, when I had that party chapter, which was a long chapter, it was kind of like 4 years of college, actually longer than that because it's extended into grad school a bit. I never felt scared. I should have felt scared, but I smoked all kinds of things and I took all kinds of substances. And yeah, there was just no conscious fear around it. But I definitely felt a bit nervous for the first and also the second Bufo ceremony, and we'll get there. So he's lighting it, and then you inhale it and you fill up your lungs and you hold it in your lungs, and then you just let the medicine do its thing. So the first serving of the medicine, I'm going to say serving of the medicine. And the first time, it felt like my soul was being pulled from my body, and that's not what's really happening, and I'm not gonna go into the scientific aspect of what's happening, that's not the point of this episode, but basically, your ego is dissolving, which is terrifying for the ego. That's, like, the ego's greatest fear, to surrender, to give up control, to not exist. So I could feel that happening, and it was a bit horrifying, that sense of being pulled, but also like having some fear around it. And it also felt like this divine homecoming. It was like I'm going to this familiar place. And I felt like that experience happening. And I'm lying there, and then I just hear my ego coming back in my mind, and it's like, what's happening here? It's not really working. So I'm like, all right, I think I'm ready for a little bit more. And I'm not scared anymore because that sense of like just divine remembrance, it truly felt like this familiar place that I was starting to touch, but I didn't go fully there. So the next serving of the medicine, I inhaled more. I filled up my lungs more. And then, okay, I don't even know how to explain what happened. It felt like I was kind of in this tunnel of sorts. And it truly felt like my soul and my consciousness was being pulled from my body. And the experience is similar to when you are being born and dying. So you're literally like dying. And not physically, but it's that same experience in a way. So it felt like my actual soul and consciousness was being pulled from my body and literally just became one with the universe. And as I'm sharing this now, I'm like, how do I even explain and give words to the experience of like my entire body dissolved and I became one with the universe and I became one with just pure unconditional love. And it was this divine remembrance and homecoming and truly just the most beautiful experience I've ever had. It was just bliss and everything all at once where you're literally nothing and everything and you're nowhere but everywhere and just truly became one with the universe. It's such an experience that goes beyond what words can even describe. Time ceased to exist. It's like nothing and everything exist all at once. It felt like it could have been absolute lifetimes. It felt like it could have been a second. I have no idea. And then, like, no awareness of my body. Like, my body is just not even a thing anymore, which is one of the many reasons why it's so important to really be working with a facilitator that you trust, because that could be a very vulnerable situation to be in when you have no conscious awareness of your body and you're in that state. So, if this is something that you do feel called to, please do your research and make sure that you're safe and working with someone who really understands the medicine and also that you trust. But yeah, that happened. Just truly became one with the universe. And then is you start to come back and then your ego set kind of starts to come online. And I remember sitting up and looking at my friend and being like, dude, what the fuck? And she just looked at me and smiled and was like, yeah, like I know. And that's our true state of being. When we're not in this human costume and when we don't have an ego, which is associated with the human experience, that's our true state of being. That's where we originate from, which is why it's this deep remembrance and homecoming of sorts. So then I'm like, all right, I don't want that to end. So I'm just going to lie here and experience it. And it was also a very energetic experience as I was more conscious and not just out in the universe. When I was coming back into this realm, I could feel like my body moving. And if you're familiar with Kundalini activation, it's an interesting style of movement. There's a lot of like back arching, and it's a Kundalini energy that's just flowing through your body. So I was having some of movements related to that, and I could like hear myself speaking light language, but I wasn't fully aware of it. And I was just in it. And it was just so, so beautiful. And the last thing that I remember before I fully came out of it, it was there are no answers because there are no questions. And I was like, wow. There are no answers because there are no questions. And that experience in and of itself truly shifted my entire perspective of reality forever. And at first, I was so confused. Like, I was really so confused after. I was like, what the fuck? I was actually a little bit like pissed in a way. I'm like, that's available to us, like to feel that and to experience that. And yet we're here doing this human thing. Like, why? Like, why would we choose this? Why would we not just be experiencing that pure, unconditional love? And that's our true nature. I was so confused by the human experience. And then I was like, "Oh, because this is how my soul actually grows and I have a purpose." And yeah, so that was interesting to navigate the sense of like, what the fuck? Like, what are we even doing here? And as I was starting to come back from the peak experience, I could see the matrix of the mind completely. Like, that's the real matrix. People talk about escaping the matrix. The real matrix is in your own mind. And ultimately, we're making all of this up. It's a big cosmic joke. You realize this, right? Like this whole thing, it's a cosmic joke. None of it is real. It's all a projection of your mind. You're just seeing yourself in every experience in every person. It's just you. It's just you. And we're making it all up. It's all coming from our minds. That's controlling our entire experience. And when you see beyond that and you see what's expanded beyond that, it's like, wow, okay, like I get it now. But also, I don't get it because there's nothing to get. So afterwards, when my ego was starting to come online again, it was a bit confronting. It was a bit disturbing because it's like you go from having like, no ego to it comes back online. And I remember afterwards, my friend and I were going to go to this one cafe to get some food to round and land back in my body. And the cafe was closed and I was so pissed. And then I'm like, but why am I pissed? Like, this doesn't even matter. The real work with this medicine is after. It's the integration, which the integration is always the most important part of any ceremony, whether it involves medicine or not. It's the most important part of listening to a podcast or reading a book or a relationship ending or taking a course or a program or going on a trip. It's like we can have these really, really powerful and expansive experiences. And sometimes our entire reality can shift in a moment, but it's like, what do we do next? How do we actually integrate this experience? How do we actually integrate what we learned? And that's where true sustainable change actually happens. And this is especially important with medicine because I see it so often where it's like people are going to this ceremony, they're going to that ceremony, and then there's another ceremony. And we're not meant to just be chasing ceremonies. We're kind of just chasing experiences then, and we're just chasing highs essentially, because the way this medicine works, it's designed to show us more of ourself and to, yes, to clear and release not just things from our lifetime, but from past lives and from our lineage. But ultimately, the real work is how we integrate it into our life. And I found this to be especially true with these amphibian medicines because they work so fast. They're intense. Kambo and Bufo are so intense and they're so powerful and they're quick, where an ayahuasca ceremony can take hours and hours and hours. And the grandmother medicine, she's like leading you on a journey. So there's often processing in the moment and things unraveling. But with Combo and Bufo, it's like there's no processing the moment. You're gone, right? There's nothing to process. The processing is after, especially when you have more clarity than ever of your ego coming back online and seeing your own patterns and your own conditioning. So after the ceremony, I initially thought I was gonna go to this one part of Bali in the mountains just to be in nature a bit, to just be in my own energy and to just integrate the experience. The facilitator mentioned this other part of Bali where they have waterfalls, and I'm like, "Oh, that actually sounds incredible." I hadn't booked a place to stay yet, and I'm like, "Let me go there." It just felt so aligned. I was able to make a reservation at a place, and it just felt so easy. So I went there the next day, and at this point, I'm beginning to have so much clarity dropping in, specifically as it related to my business. And simultaneously, I just felt like in this like bubble of unconditional love, but at the same time, starting to see like a little bit of my ego coming back. But mostly I was just still in this state of like, wow, what is life? And it's so beautiful and it feels so good. And then I arrive and there's like a waterfall right in the back, like it's a backyard of where I was staying. And I was just standing at the waterfall, just looking at it and just feeling its power and feeling its energy and just receiving so many messages and downloads and so much guidance as it relates specifically to my business. It was just such clear messages. When I first started my business, it was very much specific to helping women heal from toxic relationships. And then as I continued my own healing journey, and there were so many past versions of myself, it was like I healed from this and I healed from that, and I had that and that and that and that. It's like ultimately, I'll meet you where you're at. I can help women with so many things. And my soul chose to learn through experiences. And I have had so many experiences in life, whether it was the pattern of perfectionism, people pleasing, childhood trauma, growing up with a parent who struggles with alcoholism and toxic relationships and eating disorders and addictions of all kinds. It was like as I began to heal these patterns within myself, my coaching kind of became a bit more broad, a bit more general. And I love supporting women with all kinds of different things and helping them transcend different patterns in their life. But the messaging I was receiving after the ceremony was so clear. It was like the highest expression of your soul's purpose right now is to help women use the experience of a toxic relationship or a breakup as a portal for transformation, as a catalyst for awakening and to unlock their higher self so that they can then walk the path of embodying their divine feminine. And that's really the progression of my work, right? So it's like a breakup, a toxic relationship, some other type of life change is kind of the catalyst. And then we get to really begin to unravel and unlearn all of these patterns and heal so that we can remember our true essence, which is the path of the divine feminine. So there was just so much clarity coming through, like hiking and looking at the waterfalls and just receiving all of these messages and just being flooded with love. And it was so beautiful. It was truly like the most beautiful experience of my entire life. And, Bufo is really all about surrender because you have to surrender to that experience. And the more that you resist, because the ego is what resists and likes to control, the more difficult it is going to that place. But that is the path of surrender. It's not something you could think, it's something that you experience. And true surrender is just full trust. It was just so much trust in life, so much trust in myself. It was like, how could I ever doubt anything? And meanwhile, I'm just in nature and it was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. It was one of the most incredible experiences in my entire life. And then I went back to Canggu a couple days later and began to continue to integrate there, which was a bit uncomfortable because it was like the life I was living didn't fully fit. I felt so changed and so different, and yet everything was the same. But the routines I had, places I went, nothing really felt aligned. And again, this is why the integration is so important. And with Bufo, the integration is what takes it from being just this high and peak moment to actually a really powerful and healing experience. Because yes, there is a tremendous amount of healing that happens in the experience itself, in the ceremony, especially as it relates to energetic recalibration and things like that. But afterwards, and how you take this information, especially as you're seeing different patterns of your ego, that's where the real work is. So continued my integration here, and yeah, I just felt like I was in this glow. Everything was just so bright, and that faded a little bit as the medicine leaves your system fully, and you begin to recalibrate. And it's like your energy, your energetic frequency, your baseline has shifted, and it just becomes a bit more normalized. But just began to see and experience life in an entirely new way, just with deeper presence, deeper trust, deeper knowing, began to make some shifts and changes in my business as far as content and messaging, and really starting to integrate and embody what the medicine revealed. So I noticed myself feeling called back to the medicine. And at first, I'm like, is this just like my ego chasing another high? And when I really tuned in, it was like, no, like there's just more work to be done with this medicine. So I scheduled my next ceremony. I wanted to do it before I leave Bali. If you listen to the last episode, you know that I am leaving Bali. My heart still breaks, but also I know and trust my intuition, and I'm being guided to new places for now. And I know I'll be back to Bali. I just don't know when. So I knew I wanted to do these ceremonies before leaving Bali. And when you are working with combo, you cannot be using other medicines right before. Again, do your research, but make sure that you are waiting the allocated time before sitting with combo, because there could be a lot of health complications. So had my ceremony scheduled, and I kind of went into them thinking it was going to be the exact same experience. And I was so excited. I'm like, this is going to be great. I'm going to become one with the universe again. It's going to be just unconditional love. I received all of those messages and downloads last time. Like, what's going to happen this time? So I was coming in with a bit of a comparison and an expectation from the start, which that's coming from the mind, right? Like your soul doesn't care. Your soul doesn't give a shit. Your soul just wants to experience all of it. But I was coming in thinking it's going to be all the same. So again, started with my combo because you have to do combo first for the reasons I just mentioned. And this time I decided to do 6 gates off the start and on my left side because I really wanted to strengthen my divine feminine and really help her remember like what a warrior she is. Because combo is warrior medicine. If you've experienced combo, you know what I mean because it's intense. So got my 6 gates on, and if you're watching the video, you can still see them here. They put dragon's blood on, which is the sap from a tree, but you could see I have 5 dots left. The other one has fallen off because it's now over a week. So did 6 right off the start. And the facilitator, same facilitator, told me that this batch of the medicine is strong. Like it's really strong. And I'm like, all right, I'm ready. And I was ready, but also I don't know if you could be ready for that experience. It was horrific. It was truly just the most uncomfortable experience of my entire life. Uncomfortable doesn't even like begin to explain it. I thought I was dying. I felt like I was dying. And I mean, it's technically a poison. Your body is reacting to it. The medicine is working and doing what it needs to do within you. But I felt like I was truly dying. And at one point, I'm like, I think this is how I go. Like, wow, plot twist. I didn't know this was how it was going to end, but I really felt like I was dying. I could feel so much purging happening energetically, but not physically. And I just wanted to puke so badly. And it was not happening initially. And at the end, it did. And it was not water, it was just like straight up pure toxins from my body. And the way it burned my esophagus. I am still cringing from it. It was just straight up like toxic matter coming from like deep within me. And then afterwards, you feel better and you feel lighter. And I still felt that burning in my throat for a while. But yeah, I just felt really good. I love Kambo. I have a beautiful connection with that medicine. It's so beautiful and it's so, so powerful. And it's so unpleasant in the moment. It's so unpleasant, but that's part of the experience. It's being present with the discomfort as much as you can. My intention for the second ceremony with Kambo was really to release and let go of anything that's not meant to leave Bali with me. When I came to Bali, I was such a different version of myself, and I thought I had it all figured out. I thought I've been doing the healing, I'm healed, I'm spiritual, I'm conscious, and I was, but at the same time, I was so innocently naive. I did not have a clue. And there was so much healing that happened and so much transformation that happened. I'm not even close to the same person as I was when I first arrived in Bali. There's been so many deaths, so many rebirths, so many renditions of myself as I continue to go deeper and deeper on my own personal journey. And my intention was just to release and let go and clear any attachments to past versions of self and to anything that is not aligned with who I'm meant to be when I'm leaving Bali. And boy, did I release a lot. So that happened. And then I went and like got a massage after, just like really like nurture and honor my body and just like kind of like ground and rest. And then the next day was Bufo. So still felt a little bit nervous for the ceremony, which it's a big experience. And the whole scenario of your ego disintegrating and dissolving brings up a lot of fear within your ego. So the first time I felt like I took a good dose of the medicine. I felt it even less than I did the first ceremony. And then I'm like, all right, it's the same as the first ceremony. The first serving of the medicine is just like practice, just to kind of like work through any nerves. And now I'm ready. So I sat up and I'm like, okay, now I'm ready. And then I had a second serving of the medicine. And I was like, all right, this is when it happens. This is when I dissolve and become one with the universe. It didn't happen. I could feel my ego gripping and grasping and controlling. It was this big sense of control. And I'm like, "Oh, it's not working. Like, what's happening?" And then I started to really hear and see my mind and my ego in a much louder way. And the comparison started of like, well, it worked last time. Why is it not working this time? And I'm like, okay, I think I'm ready for more medicine. So I have more medicine. And same thing. And at this point, I was having an energetic experience. It was very somatic for me this time. Like my body was shivering and there was a lot of somatic movements and my jaw, my goodness, my jaw went on its own journey. It was like if you're watching the video, I'm like showing you, like spasming from like side to side. But I didn't feel that same sense of my soul and consciousness is being pulled from my body and I'm like going towards the universe. Like I didn't feel that at all. So I'm like, oh, I think I need more medicine. And I have more medicine. And at this point, my ego is getting louder and louder. So for the first ceremony, I straight up just became God. I became the universe, which we are. You are God. You are the universe. And just melted into pure unconditional love. This time, it was kind of the exact opposite, where my ego just got so loud and I felt this deep sense of failure. It was like, it's not working. I just need to do more of the medicine, and just a lot of disappointment, and still having that expectation of I need to reach that peak experience, that state of non duality. So then I had more medicine. I don't even know how much medicine I had. It was a lot. Ultimately, the facilitator was like, all right, this is kind of it, right? Like you're having the experience that you are meant to be having. And I had more and more medicine, and it was a lot of medicine. And I'm laying there, and I basically hung out with like my inner bully. And it was not fun because your ego is the judgmental part, the part that criticizes and judges you and does all the things. And yeah, I could just see those patterns so, so clearly. And it was so uncomfortable. It was not a fun or pleasant experience at all. At the same time, my jaw is just going on its own journey. At one point, I'm like, I don't know if my jaw ever stops like shaking or spasming. Like maybe this is just my jaw now and just what it is. And then I started to feel like, well, what if I can just soften into this? Because this is clearly the experience I'm having. I'm not reaching that outcome that I desired, that place of non duality. And I just started to soften into it. And then I began to feel a little bit of that bliss and unconditional love. And I actually started crying. There were just tears of gratitude. And I was like, oh, it was there all along. I had to allow myself to see it. But it was like all of these mind stories and the mind control was keeping me from that. But like it was here all along. And then I could also see how my attachment to the outcome was the only thing keeping me from the outcome. And I'm going to say that again because this in and of itself is going to be something that if you really apply it and embody it will shift your life forever. It was my attachment to the outcome that was the only thing actually keeping me from the outcome that I desired. And I could also see how I was chasing an outcome to feel a certain way. Another pattern that has been showing up in a lot of my life, whether it's business goals or other goals that I have for myself, it's like I'm chasing an outcome to feel successful, to feel safe, to feel loved, to feel whatever it is. We're chasing outcomes and we're chasing destinations to feel a certain way. We're chasing feelings. And that's not how this works. That's actually pushing what we want away from us because we're chasing and we're creating separation from it rather than just feeling it and being it and becoming it. And when I started to just soften and allow myself to feel that love for myself, then I was like, it was never about the outcome. And the facilitator and I spoke after, and he provided some support because at this point I was still feeling the sense of failure and disappointment and like it didn't work. And I could also see all of the patterns that were present and playing out. And I could also see how I received the exact medicine that I needed. And there's such an intelligence to these medicines. They know how to work with you. They know what you need. It's not always what you want, but what you want isn't always what you need. And in this experience, I received the exact medicine that I needed. Now, it wasn't what I wanted at all. I just wanted to like dissolve and become one with the universe. And that wasn't the medicine that I needed. I needed to be able to see those patterns and to see that programming on deeper levels. So I left still feeling disappointed, still feeling those patterns very present and really just loud. It was just really loud. And I ended up going to the same place in nature with the waterfalls again because I tried to recreate the entire experience. Can you feel that sense of control coming through? I'm like, oh, we're going to make it perfect. It's going to be this, it's going to be this, then it's going to be that. And yes, it's going to be great. And I was trying to control all of it. And that was one of the patterns that I needed to really see this sense of control. So went to the nature place the same day. And at this point, I was just really in my mind. And it just felt like my ego was so loud. Like, and vision your ego and your mind and all of your thoughts as a volume dial. Turn all the way up. And it's just so loud. And it felt like nothing was unfolding the way I desired, which was such contrast to the first experience where everything was just like divine and it was in flow. And that's what happens when you're in surrender. When you're in that place of surrender, everything flows and life moves through you. This time, I was not in surrender. I was in control. I was in resistance. And it felt like nothing was working out. I felt like nothing was going right. One of my favorite cafes there has this really delicious cacao. And I'm like, all I want to do is sit by the fire and drink my cacao. I get there, they're out of cacao. I'm like, what do you mean you're out of cacao? Like, I came here to drink cacao. And they're like, finished, sorry. And I'm like, of course, nothing ever works out for me. And I'm just hearing it. And I'm like, why is this the story that I'm telling? But also, I'm stuck in the story. So then I was just feeling frustrated, a sense of failure, all the things, even little things. Like I brought a flashlight with me this time because the cafe that I go to, it's like my favorite cafe ever. The food is so good. It's this beautiful view of jungle and mountains and the sunset. And then you see the clouds and the fog rolling in. It's just so cozy. They have these bean bags you could sit on, and then they like build a fire. It's like just such a vibe. I love it so much. And the food is delicious. And it's a little bit of a walk from the place that I stayed at because I stayed at the same place, even had the same room. It was like everything was the same, but so different. The road to go in between the cafe and the place I was staying gets pitch black at night. So last time I just used the flashlight on my phone, but this time I'm like, out of flashlight. So pull my flashlight out first night to walk back. The battery in the flashlight is about dead. So there's literally no light whatsoever. And I'm like, nothing ever works out and just stuck in this narrative. So use my phone. It was fine. It was like nothing was really wrong, but my mind was making everything wrong. My mind was making everything a problem. And then I would look up and I would see the moon or I would see the stars because it was pitch black and it was such a clear night. I could see like every single star in the entire galaxy. And I'm like, wow, this was here all along. And yet I couldn't see it because I was so fixated on the problems. I was so fixated on what was wrong. And it was just all of these patterns were really just amplified patterns related to judgment towards myself, patterns towards looking for problems, patterns to only focusing on what's not working and playing into this narrative of nothing ever works out for me. And it was just like all of these patterns and conditions of my ego were just amplified. And I'm like, "Oh, this is not fun. This isn't what I wanted." Like, I didn't sign up for this, but I did because I came for healing. I didn't come for an experience. Apparently, part of me did, but I came for healing. I came for transformation. That's why I work with these medicines. They're very intuitively guided for the ones that I'm working with, but also it's here for my own journey, my own expansion, my own evolution, my own healing. And from there, like everything in life changes. But yeah, it was just not a fun time. Get back to the room. There's no fucking hot water. And I'm just stuck in the suffering, stuck in the struggle. Next day, I go to do the waterfall hike. The first time I did, I saw 3 waterfalls, one being in the backyard of the place I was staying, and then there were 2 more waterfalls. I knew that there were 2 or 3 more waterfalls beyond that, but last time I wasn't prepared because I didn't know I was going on a waterfall hike. I thought I was going to the mountains and I was just gonna hang out in a little villa or something. So the first time I had sandals, I didn't have the right clothing or anything, I didn't have snacks. I was just not prepared. But this time I had hiking sandals, which I got when I went to the ayahuasca retreat in Costa Rica. And that was on the list of things to bring because the retreat center was straight up in the wilderness. And walking from the temple ceremony space back to your room at night after ceremony, you're like walking in the mud. So they suggested getting like hiking sandals. And I got them and I'm like, these are so ugly. Like, I don't think I'll ever wear these again. And I was so glad I had them at the retreat because I'm like, these are perfect. And then I was so glad to have them again as I'm doing my waterfall hike because once again, they were just perfect. Mostly, mostly perfect. I'll tell you why in a moment. So then get to the first waterfall and I brought a rose with me and I'm like, I don't know, I just felt really called to bring my rose on my waterfall hike with me. Can you see it now? I'm out in the jungle, essentially. It's like mountains, but it's jungle. And there's like the river, and then you have all these waterfalls. And I'm walking, I got my hiking sandals on, and I'm holding this white rose. And my intention with the rose was to give an offering to each of the waterfalls with petals and prayers. So I'm holding my rose, and the very first waterfall I went to throw a couple of the petals and they didn't land in the water like I wanted them to. I saw them like going into the water and floating down the stream. No, they landed in the mud next to me. So I bent down to pick them up and I slipped and I fell. Didn't get to fully make my like offering, but now my knee is bleeding. My hands are cut up. I got like a little like mark on my elbow and my other knee had a scrape on it. And the whole side of my shorts were muddy and I'm like, what the fuck? That wasn't supposed to happen. Like, why did that have to happen? And again, just stuck in that narrative. So I'm like, all right, this is how we're starting the day. And there were so many moments to just surrender and to let go. And I didn't. I gripped, I held on, and it just kept getting louder and louder and louder. I felt trapped in my mind. I could see and hear my thoughts so clearly. I could see and feel all of my patterns and programs and this matrix of my mind so clearly. And yet I felt trapped in it. I couldn't get out of it. And it's like, I'm in nature. It's beautiful. There's a fucking waterfall there. There's all kinds of birds around me and insects chirping and butterflies and blue dragonflies. Did you know they have blue and red dragonflies? They do. They're incredible and like leaves the size of my entire body. And I'm not even there. I'm in my mind. And then I'm like, well, I'm ruining it. I'm ruining the experience. And it was just not the most fun day. And it could have been. if I surrender to the experience, but I didn't. I was trapped in my mind. And again, like I needed to see all of this. And there were like some really, really beautiful moments, of course, but overall, it was just not the experience that I expected and desired. So that night, I'm still in this state of full on ego. And I'm like, I don't get it. My mind was still trying to figure it out. I'm like, after the first time, there was no ego whatsoever. And I was just being flooded with downloads and ideas and inspiration. And this time, it's the exact opposite. I feel like I'm all ego. Like where's the ideas? Where's the creativity? Where are these divine downloads? Like why am I not receiving them? At the cafe, asked them to build a fire. So I'm sitting by the fire and I had some cacao with me. So I asked them, I'm like, I know you're out of cacao, but if I give you cacao, can you make it for me? And I'll just pay the menu price, but I just want a cup of cacao. And they did actually. So it was like these beautiful moments, but they were so masked and hidden by my mind. And so then I get back to my place and I had told them that there was no hot water and they changed the gas. So I had hot water. And then I went to bed. I was just feeling so exhausted. And that night, so Sunday night was the actual ceremony. And then Monday was a waterfall hike. And Monday night was one of the most intense and horrific nights of my entire life. When I tell you I was in hell, I was actually in hell, except hell was my mind. I don't know how this happened, how I got there, but it was where I needed to be, but it was horrific. So I went to sleep and it felt like the night lasted for eternity. It was infinitely long and I was actually in hell, but I was in my own mind. It felt like Dante's Inferno. I think that's a book I read in high school or something, and I don't know why, but that just keeps coming through. It was like a full on Dante's Inferno. And I was in hell, except hell was my own mind. I wasn't fully awake. I wasn't fully sleeping. I don't even know what state I was in, but I felt so trapped. It was like every fear, every egoic pattern, every thought, everything was just so loud. Like I talked about like turning the volume up and that's how it felt before. Now it was like all the way up. We're like blasting out the speakers, but it was just me and my own mind. I at one point I'm like, do I have some kind of like entity in my energetic field? And I'm like, no, the entity is just my ego. This is literally just my own ego. And I am trapped in hell and it's my own mind. And I thought I was going insane. Like I really thought I was going insane. I don't really know too much about what was happening exactly. I just remember the feeling of it and it was horrific. It was one of the most intense and scary and horrific experiences of my entire life. Like I was literally in hell. And it felt like there was this like dome that I was trapped in, and that dome was my mind. I just felt so trapped. Trapped is probably the best word I can describe. And it was just horrific. I thought I was going insane. I was in hell. I've never experienced anything like it. And parts of me were like, surrender, allow it, accept it, soften into it. And it took so much to surrender into it, because I'll tell you what, surrender, it kind of goes against our human conditioning. It's our most natural state of being, surrender. Surrender isn't something that you can think or do really. It's an experience, it's allowing, and it's our true state of being, but it goes against our conditioning. And it's a lot easier to surrender into becoming one with the universe and love and bliss and joy and all the things. It's a lot more challenging to surrender into hell. Like I'm literally in hell and parts of me are like, surrender. And I'm like, fuck you, surrender. Like what do you mean? Like I'm dying. I feel like I'm dying and I'm in hell. Like I died and now I'm in hell and this is where I exist and I'm in my mind crazy. I'm going insane. What's happening? And there's this dome and I'm all trapped in it. And it's like soften, just soften the edges. And I'm like, let me see if I could just like breathe into this and soften into it. And slowly that dome that I was trapped in began to like dissolve. And it wasn't that same blast off sensation that I had the first time with Bufo, but a little bit of that, this very soft and not as amplified. But then it was just full surrender into it, and hell dissolved, hell disappeared, and I just felt such unconditional love. I remember laying in bed and just feeling like I was being held by the Divine Mother herself. And it was just the most satisfying experience. And I'm like, wow, I just hung out in hell, like actually in the inferno, was going insane. And now I'm being held and nurtured by the Divine Mother. And it was so, so beautiful. And I just wanted to lay in bed forever and just savor the bliss and the presence of that. And then ended up going to the cafe again. It's like the only cafe I go to in this part of Bali, and brought my cacao. They made me cacao, and I'm looking at the trees and the jungle and just feeling the deepest state of presence I've ever felt, and just feeling pure unconditional love. And it felt similar to after the first ceremony with Bufo, but also completely different. Same, but also completely different. And it was just this sense of spaciousness. I felt like almost hollow in a way. And I started to notice my jaw. So I mentioned in the Bufo ceremony that my jaw was just like shaking and spasming out of control. And it also was in the combo ceremony as well. And I've had experiences where that has happened before, either in breath work or energy healing sessions, but not to the extent that it happens in Bufo and the combo ceremony, but specifically Bufo. So the night after I was in hell, I noticed that my jaw just felt so like loose. It actually felt like it was just hanging from my face, and it still feels like that. I felt like, you know, those like marionette puppets where their jaw is just hanging there and then it has strings? It felt like that. It felt like my jaw was just hanging off of my face. And I'm like, whoa, I didn't even realize how much I was holding on to in my jaw, which our jaw is where we carry a lot of trauma. It's one of our survival patterns, along with our hips and our pelvic floor and our jaw. We carry so much trauma. I didn't even know how much I was holding on to and carrying in my jaw specifically until I released it. And now I'm like, I feel like my jaw is just hanging off. Even now, I'm like, do I look different? Just did the structure of my face change now that my jaw is just hanging off? And I don't know. Maybe it does. It doesn't really matter. I'm still getting used to like my new jaw because it just feels so soft and loose. And a little bit it reminds me of back in the day, which when in the day when I used to get Botox, I would actually get Botox in my jaw. And it can be used to treat TMJ or if you grind your teeth because it numbs, it softens, it relaxes the muscle. That's not why I got it. I got it because it also creates a more slender look in your face. And you feel that weakness in your jaw. And it kind of felt like that, but just way more extreme. Like my jaw just feels so soft and loose now. But I only noticed it after the night in hell. So that next morning, I'm sitting there and everything just feels so clear and hollow. Hollow is the best word I can use, like the best word I could think of to describe it. Just the sense of spaciousness, which makes sense because I cleared a lot of shit, but it was just such peace. It was such peace and just the deepest level of self acceptance. And there were no thoughts. It went from being drowning in thoughts to such clarity, not flooded with ideas or downloads or anything like that. It was just pure, crisp life. Like pure awareness, pure presence at the moment. And it was so beautiful. And I remembered feeling like, wow, if you only knew how much violence it took to reach this level of inner peace, because the night before it was hell. It was actual hell. And as I'm saying that, like it doesn't even make sense because it was just such a spiritual journey through hell. But that profound peace that came after was so beautiful. It was incredible. It was just pure presence and silence. And it was like, wow, it went from so much noise to just silence. And I was like, oh, I wish I could stay here another day, but I had already made arrangements to come back to Canggu that day. I messaged the driver who brought me back to Canggu last time. Again, like I was trying to make it all the same. So I like walk up with my stuff and I don't see the driver and he like sends his friend or something. And I'm like, the last time when the driver who I thought I was going to have, who I thought I scheduled, when he brought me back, he like took me on all of these adventures. He like showed me all of the spice trees and he's using his car key to like, scrape the bark of the cinnamon tree so I could smell the cinnamon. And he's picking clove leaves so I could smell the cloves. And he brought me to these twin lakes and he took some pictures and then he brought me to the largest rice terrace in Bali and then I went to to hot springs. I just did all of these fun things. Like I could just keep going because it was just one fun adventure after the next. And it was that flow that I was in after the first ceremony. And this time I was like, it's not him. I guess I'm not doing these fun adventures today. That's okay. I'm here for it. I was kind of feeling exhausted already because through a fucking journey. But this driver was so sweet, and I'm prepared to just drive and not stop at all and just go all the way back without any fun adventure. And he asked me, do you want to go to like a picture place to see these lakes? And I'm like, yeah, I do want to do that. So he brought me, and it was actually a different place than the first time. And you had to pay to enter, but they had like all of these photo spots set up, like swings and like this boat like overlooking the lake and like birds nest. So I have all of these cool pictures. I'm like, wow, this was so fun. And they have like there that like take all the pictures for you. And then he's like, do you want to go on a boat? Do you want to go on a motorboat on the lake? And at first I was like, no, I don't want to do that. But then I remembered the first time I was coming back after the ceremonies, I just kept saying yes to everything, and everything just ended up being so much fun. I was just in that energy of like, yes, 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 and more just kept coming. So I'm like, actually, I think I do want to go on the boat. He brought me down to where you enter the lake, and I actually didn't have enough cash because they didn't take card, but he let me borrow the money because I would just transfer it to him later. And I got on the boat, and it was pretty cold actually, so I have my sweatshirt on, and I'm like, oh, this is actually fun, and it was so beautiful. And then the driver asked me if I wanted to drive, so now I'm driving the boat in Bali, and I'm like, I never expected myself to be driving a boat on a lake in Bali, but here I am. And it was so beautiful. And again, I just still had that deep sense of presence and spaciousness. And then he brought me to a couple other places, but it was just so unexpected because at that point I had already released like all attachments and expectations. And I had so many before. Oh my goodness. I came into these second ceremonies full of expectations and full of attachments to outcomes. Once I let that go, it was like there was space for like life to flow through. So make my way back to Canggu, and I was like exhausted. I was like ready for bed. It was probably like PM, and I definitely went to bed early, but the next day I'm like, all right, I'm just going to give myself some space to continue to integrate because I'm clearly like still deep in a process and moving through a lot. And the next day, I went to my favorite coffee shop where I don't drink coffee, I drink matcha. They make their own homemade almond milk, and the combination with the almond milk and the matcha tastes like actual heaven. It's incredible. I love it so much. So I was so excited to go to my coffee shop and have my matcha, and I get to see my friends there. And so I love the workers. It's such a vibe. So I get my matcha and I'm drinking my matcha, and I'm like, it tastes funny. Like it doesn't really taste right. So I went back up and I'm like, are you sure you made it with almond milk? And they're like, yeah, like always. Salalu. That means like always. So I sit back down, I'm drinking it, and I'm like, let me taste the almond milk because it doesn't taste right. Like something is off. I taste the almond milk and I'm like, the almond milk tastes different, but it tastes good. And then they were like, do you want us to remake it? And I'm like, okay, sure. Like let's figure out what's happening with this matcha. So they remake it, and I'm like, oh, my taste has actually changed. It just doesn't taste the same. And also my body is telling me not to drink the matcha. And at this point I had drank probably about a third of it already. And I could feel the caffeine in my system, and it was like, whoa. I felt like I was literally like about to explode in my body. I'm like, oh, I get it. This is just way too much caffeine for my system right now. And I was a bit heartbroken, if I'm fully honest, because I mentioned I loved the matcha, but I'm like, all right, I just can't drink matcha now. And that whole day, like my first full day back in Canggu, I went to like eat some of my favorite foods, and I'm like, everything tastes different. Like my sense of taste has changed. My jaw is hanging off, and I just feel hollow and empty. And I'm like, whoa, what is happening? And I'm like, this is part of the integration. Like my body and every aspect of my being went through a really big process and a really big journey. And now I'm just going to give myself the space to really honor that. And so I have not been on Instagram at all this past week, mostly because I have not been creating, and I also didn't want to consume. I really wanted to be in my own space, in my own energy, giving myself space to rest, to really honor where I'm at and what I need. I did not show up in my business at all. That's not true. I had a connection call with a really, really beautiful soul, and I also facilitated the embodiment experience for Goddess Codes. And for both of those, I it felt aligned to hold space for that. If it didn't, I would have rescheduled it. But I have just been journaling and painting and spending time at the beach and just really giving myself this space to rest and to be. And this has been so important for my integration because I don't think I've ever really fully given myself this level of permission to just rest and to know that resting is actually the most productive thing I can do. And I can just see how different patterns that had been controlling my life like no longer fit. Like they just don't work anymore. It's like we're at a dead end, fork in the road. Like we need to create a new way of being. And this is where the real work begins because we have these experiences that shift our reality and create new awareness. But it's like, what do we do with that awareness? Because we have this interesting thing called free will. But once we can see the pattern, once we have the awareness of it, it becomes a choice if we continue to go down that path. So for me, a lot of the realizations I had were just that I have really been living my life looking for outcomes, looking to reach goals and to hit certain targets in order to feel a certain way within myself. I can still see how pressure has still been the driving force in a lot of my life. And more than anything, I can see my addiction to my own suffering and to my own struggling. I feel like that is a huge part of the human condition that we aren't even aware of. It's our addiction to our own struggling, it's our addiction to our own suffering. And we actually become attached to the things that we don't want because it's really feeding these underlying patterns of the ego. And to really have the awareness of that, not just like from a mind's level, but from like a soul and embodiment level, it's been really, really profound and just shifting my entire experience of life. And the beautiful part is, it's like I get to share myself with my coaching clients in the spaces that I hold. So the deeper I go within myself, the deeper I can take women that work with me. My sole purpose in life is my soul's purpose. Everything else flows from that. I know the deeper I go within myself, the more I discover myself, the more that I get to actually live and create the life that I'm meant to live, but no longer from a place of attachments to outcomes. Because at the end of the day, life is way more magical than we can ever make up. We're truly limiting ourselves with our outcomes that we're creating anyway. And so often those outcomes are really driven by patterns and conditioning of the ego. And it's not coming from a place of true soul alignment. So this entire past week has just been really giving myself space to just be. There were so many times where I was just like sitting and just like present. And I started drinking decaf lattes because the next day I'm like, I still want to go to my coffee shop. I just like, I love it here. It's just one of my favorite ways to start the day besides surfing. Best day ever is surfing and then the coffee shop, which I'm about to do after I record this episode. But I felt inspired to record today, which felt really good because, as I mentioned, this whole past week, I've just been resting. I've been feeling so exhausted, sleeping like 9 or 10 hours a night, like midway through the day, doing like a long ass yoga nidra to just rest and giving myself the space that I need to really integrate this experience because the first ceremony with Kambo and Bufo was very so profound and definitely like life is never the same after this. But I would say this one maybe even more so. There's a definitive like before and after, and I can feel every aspect of my life shifting. It's this interesting place of like who I was, I no longer am because that identity has been stripped away to some degree, but I haven't like fully stepped into what's next. So it's like I don't know who I am and yet I know exactly who I am. It's really interesting. It's an interesting place to be in. But the next day I went to the coffee shop and I'm like, I'm not having matcha. Clearly this is not aligned for me right now. And a friend of mine mentioned that she drinks decaf for that same reason. She's like, I can't drink caffeine. My energy is so high already. Like, yeah, I drink decaf. And I'm like, oh, maybe I'll try decaf. And I remember I used to I used to like make fun of people who drink decaf, not in a major way, but I'm just like, that's weird. Like, why do you drink decaf? Like, don't people just drink coffee for like, the caffeine and the energy? This is back when I would drink an absurd amount of caffeine for energy because I was relying on energy from sources outside of myself. And also, a fun fact, caffeine is a numbing agent. It actually numbs you and disconnects you. So I didn't know that at the time. I just thought I loved caffeine. And whenever people would drink decaf, I'm like, that's weird. Like, why would someone drink decaf? And now here I am drinking decaf. So I'm looking at all the options. I'm like, cappuccino, latte, flat white. Like, what do I do? I tried a cappuccino and it was like, okay. But the next day I got an iced decaf latte with the homemade almond milk. And when I tell you it tastes like heaven, it tastes like heaven. I mean, the matcha did too, but matcha doesn't work for me right now. So I'm doing the iced decaf lattes and they're so good. Like so good. I'm so excited. But yeah, overall, but yeah, I'm so excited to have one this morning. But I really felt called to share my experience and yeah, life is not always what we want or expect, but we're always receiving exactly what we're meant to, when we're meant to, in the way that we're meant to, when we can allow ourselves to really just like lean in and receive the medicine of it and just trust. I was feeling into different conversations and topics to share with you for this next episode. And I'm like, no, I really feel called to speak about my experience. And I feel like I'm in a place where I can speak about it. And it just felt important to share. So that is a long story, not so that really just scratching the surface of the experience that I've been moving through this past week. And it's been one of the most intense and difficult and challenging experiences and integration of my entire life. And I'm also so grateful for all of it because I can see how important it really was for me to meet myself on these deeper levels. And I'm just so, so grateful for these beautiful medicines of the earth, for Kambo and Bufo and the other medicines that I've worked with. And I am an advocate of making aligned choices for yourself. If that means exploring these medicines, follow that calling, but also do your research and make sure that you are working with facilitators that you trust and really understand the medicine because it's serious shit. Like it's no joke. It's really really powerful and that the space that's held is so, so important, but ultimately the real work happens within yourself. Like it's you. And you're always having the exact experience that you are meant to have when you can, but you have to trust that. And I can feel that on such deeper levels. But yeah, it has been a wild ride this past week. And yeah, still processing, still integrating, but it felt good to be able to share this, and I felt like I was sharing it from a really grounded place. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Thank you for being here. I truly, truly appreciate you and your energy. And you being here is the difference between me just talking to myself. It's 11:11 right now as I'm sharing this, and being able to actually show up in my purpose. So you matter. You matter to me, and I love you, and I'm grateful for you. And let's see, what announcements do we have? The announcements will be in the show notes. Still doing the review contest, so leave a review of the show on Spotify or Apple and send me a screenshot of it or share it in your Instagram stories. Make sure you tag me. I'll send you immediate access to a masterclass of your choice, and you'll also be entered to win a free session with me, coaching session, energy healing and activation session, and somatic healing ceremony. You get to choose, but you'll be entered to win one of two sessions. And is that it? Do we have any more announcements? I think that's it. If you are looking for support on your journey of transformation and healing and using challenging experiences in life, such as toxic relationships and portals of seasons of change as portals for reinvention, then the link will also be in the show notes to learn more about working with me. So that is all for today. Sending you so much love, and I'll see you next week.